Hello again everybody and welcome back to the Red Flag 16-2 campaign and the F-15C. We're on to mission number 4. This is called Removing the Bear's Claws. Now I'm going to be flying this mission in the Oculus Rift DK2 and therefore using Tacview after the fact to tell most of the story. So this will run a little bit more like an extended version of the debriefs that I do at the end of a mission, although I still plan to present what happens in the target area at real time or near real time. So let me go ahead and go through the briefing, and again on this briefing I'm going to skip a lot of the details that you can get by reading the whole thing, and the link to the full package is in the video description. So today's strike is going to be Offensive Counter-Air, OCA, meaning that we're taking out the enemy's aircraft and their ability to get them into the air. And then the mission summary, for my part of it, I am once again going to be leading a mixed sweep ahead of the strike package. So going in ahead of our forces and then taking out any aircraft that are in the air. And as an additional twist, we're going to have a B-52 out of Barksdale, this will be callsign Pontiac, launching Calcums, conventional air-launched cruise missiles, against this SA-10 site that we see down here at the Chalicha Peak area. Now in addition to that, harm shooters, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, and these are going to be FA-18s today, are going to take out the SA-11 at the northern airfield. We can see that SA-11 displayed up here and the threat ring for both the SA-10 and the SA-11 here on the map. So my mission objective is to conduct a pre-strike sweep of the FIBA, working east to west and then south to north, and then reset on a combat air patrol to protect strikers egressing to the east. So we're going to have two F-15 flights up. It's going to be Ford 4 and Ford 3. These are two 4-ship F-15C flights. I'm going to be Ford 3. The departure, the transit, and the marshal are going to be very similar, if not identical to last time. So it's just take off, fly up to steer point 6 and 7, and then at 0857 from the Caliente Bravo airspace along our route, hitting steer point 8 and then steer point 9 and 10, conducting a sweep, and I'll be able to push it out further to the west. I just have to keep in mind that SA-10 is there, so if I see that SA-10 go active, I know this time that I can't push it in quite as aggressively as I did. SA-11s really shouldn't be a problem as long as I hang back here in the Kiowatch range area. So again, we're expecting the harm shooters to deal with the SA-10 and SA-11, the Springfield flight, as well as that B-52 with the Calcums Pontiac flight. Now, the strikers marshal in the Caliente Bravo airspace and push at about the same time that we do. Their time on target is expected to be 09, 03 local, and onwards. So I'm just going to listen out for them. I don't have to focus primarily on what they're doing, but I want to keep an eye on things, especially the progress of these F-15 flights, Dodge 1, 2, 3, and 4, because the mission success criteria is actually tied to these flights. So as long as these two flights make it to the northern and southern airfield and destroy their targets, the mission for campaign progress purposes is going to be considered a success. And well, as long as I do my job, that should take care of itself. And then again, the bullseye is going to be out here at Mount Helen, and I'll be using that as a reference as I get the AWACS calls. So let me go ahead and get this mission going. Now, picking up on the ramp again, I had plenty of time like I did on the last mission to get things started up and to taxi. I was the last one out of the gates. I even had a few minutes to hop out of the aircraft, just doing Control F11, and it's my favorite thing to do in the Oculus Rift, or one of my favorite things to do other than obviously fly, is just to walk around on the ramp, and especially as the aircraft were coming by like here, it's the next best thing to being on the ramp at Nellis during a red flag, watching these things go by. I even went to my aircraft real quick and did a post-loading inspection on my AIM-9 and AIM-120. I guess old habits die hard. So we get on the taxi behind this flight of F-15Es. This is Dodge 3 that I'm following out. And then from there, the takeoff, the climb out, and the transit up the solid corridor to the marshal location were just exactly as briefed. And I just, as always, use that time to build situational awareness and to get an idea of how things are looking, seeing if I can pick out anything that just seems different or out of what I was expecting from the briefing. Because if I'm not fully prepared and if I don't have full situational awareness going in, I'm already starting behind the curve. But let me go ahead and skip forward. We'll go ahead and get to the point where we marshal and pick things up again, more or less real time. So just looking out there in the distance and the overall picture that I've been building ever since the mission started, I've just been listening up to the AWACS calls and watching my RWR as I transit up here. We have two groups up, a northern and southern MiG-29 group just as briefed. And I can see the SA-10 threat, the SA-15s, and I don't see from this view SA-11s yet, but I know they're there. And then as we back out on the view, we can see the B-52 way up there to the north, and I'll have it oriented basically we're always going to be looking west in the Tacview view, but the B-52 Pontiac flight is coming up and getting ready to launch their Calcums, the conventional air-launched cruise missile, on the SA-10 site. And then as I pass under the southern Chevy flight up there on the cap, up there producing contrails, you could probably imagine how cool this looks as a 3D view. That was just awesome. As Overlord is calling in more contacts, referring to one of those groups of MiG-29s. And if it was at 289, yeah, they're calling in the right-hand group at this point. Okay, so at this point, I'm approaching Rachel. I decided to go ahead and go radar on since I'm trying to get ahead a little bit more than I was on the last mission. I was a little bit behind at this point. So as I get the radar on, my flight is going to start calling out contacts as they detect them. There's Ford 4 passing Irish. I was trying, I don't think I did as good a job of it as I wanted to. I was trying to coordinate more with Ford 4. They're off to my right and slightly behind me. I was trying to time this a little bit better than last time, so they would be kind of supporting each other. I would go in, take some shots, turn back out, and then Ford 4 would come in behind me. I think I did a good job initially of setting up for that. I don't think I did a particularly good job of it as we get going here, but you'll see as we go. And as we get another call from AWACS calling out those MiG-29 crews, we can see that Pontiac, the B-52, was firing their first salvo of AGM-86s on that SA-10. Okay, and there's the other F-15 flight calling out that they are engaging bandits, and that would be the MiG-29 group that we're head-on with right now, looking exactly due west on the Tacview view from here on out. And then, of course, just like last time, we're going to have the strike package call in when they pass Mount Irish. And I'm engaging the afterburner. I'm trying something a little bit different this time. I'm trying to get more speed and therefore more range. So I made a concerted effort at this point to, whenever I was getting ready to fire some M120s, to make sure that my speed was as high as I could reasonably get it. Now at this point I have a track wall scan lock on 2 bandits. I think I'm about to take some shots. And this time, I didn't tell my flight to engage. I wanted to keep them a little bit more reined in, as 2 missiles are tracking out there, 1 per aircraft. And then I'm going to turn to the right, and what I'm doing is putting my radar dish so that it's looking at the gimbal limits. That means that I'm not going to close on them too quickly and get into their missile range. I'm just waiting for my missiles to go hot with their radars, and then go from there. Now, I missed an opportunity here. What I wish I had done in this case is, instead of turning left to press the engagement, is to turn right. If I had turned right and then extended out, I have Ford 4 right in back of me that could go in and just wipe these guys out. That's what I should have done, absolutely, was turn right instead of left. Okay, but in retrospect, it was going to work out okay either way, because 2 got the kill on that one. My M120 is going to miss, and then, just like I was saying, I have Ford 4 right there that's going to mop up that additional bandit. And I also heard the call right there, the Pontiac was mission complete, so right now, we have Calcums in the air, and these are not like supersonic missiles. They're going to fly high subsonic and take a while to get to their target, but it will get there at such a time to sort of coordinate with the rest of the strike package. So we have the Calcums going in first, and then the strike package following them up. So it's almost as if, in a case like this, you're treating the cruise missiles as just another element of the package, deconflicting them for time, definitely, so that you don't have them flying into our aircraft, or we don't have our aircraft flying into their fragmentation pattern once they do detonate. Okay, now at this point, yeah, I'm going after another MiG-29 group that we have out there to the left. This is the second one that was down to the south. and this other MiG-29 to our right is going to circle back around, and at this point, I'm not aware of him at all. But I can't really fault myself for that. I'm kind of focused right here on another engagement, knowing that Ford is back there to mop up. So I take a couple of AIM-120 shots, and it's basically just a rinse and repeat of what I did on that first one. Just track while scan lock of 2 targets, and then turn to crank, and to keep myself from closing too quickly, and to increase the range of any missile shot that the MiG-29s want to take on me. That's taking advantage of my strengths, which are the active radar AIM-120 missile that has a longer range, and there's a hit on one. And then at that point, yeah, I do the right thing in that case. I just turn straight away from those bandits, and then, just in case, I have my flight engaged at that point, because, as usually happens, I think I was a little bit task-saturated at this point and didn't really have a firm grasp on what the picture was, so I just wanted to come back out here, reset, find myself again, find the other aircraft, and then turn back in. Okay, now at this point, I believe I'm turning in response to an RWR contact from more MiG-29s. So now I'm just back into radar search mode. I come over the top, maybe a little bit too high on that apex. I gave my position away a little bit with some contrails right there. So now I have some more radar locks, and I'm going to try the same thing that I just did on those first 2 engagements, although I'm having a little bit of trouble with the radar on those for some reason. I got a little bit too close to that first MiG, so I almost put myself into the same position I was in last mission, where the MiG was able to get a shot off on me, and if I allow that to happen in an F-15 with AIM-120s remaining, then yeah, I haven't really managed it correctly, but this still works out just fine. And that's a good hit. And if I hadn't got that hit, yeah, we have plenty of other AIM-120s and F-15s in the air. There's no lack of air cover right now, and we can see the AGM-86s, the Calcums, going in on their targets as we speak. And right now, I am just sort of resetting on my combat air patrol. At this point, as far as I'm concerned, the sweep portion is complete. So I'm just heading back down to the combat air patrol, and that's going to be starting right in front of me, and then just a back and forth, hot-cold from here on out. As I have AIM-9s pulled up, I'm not sure exactly why. But I think at this point, I'm just sort of visually looking for targets, not realizing there's nothing around me and that I'm hearing radio calls about the engagement further away. And there we go. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I was just blind searching, clearing my 6 and looking for something that wasn't there. And, you know, I kind of hate to second guess myself on that when it was a proper response. But I really didn't have to do that. Now that SA-10 side is really starting to open up on these HM-86s. So there's a hit. That's at least a couple of them. 3 Calcums taken out that were going in on that SA-10 side. So that could have been bad if these hadn't gone in. So if these don't make it all the way there, then that SA-10 obviously is going to be up and be a problem. And there are, looks like, some more AGM-86s going in against the SA-15s and SA-11s up there further to the north. Okay, so I get a 205 for 45 call, and that's going to be in front of me and to the right. And then, oh yeah, that's right, I don't engage or I don't go in there immediately because I'm out of AIM-120s. I want to, before I commit myself, make sure that I have no recourse but to press in. I also want to make sure that my flight is formed back up, so then I can use my flight just as sort of an indirect shooter. I can identify the targets that I want them to take out and then give them the command to specifically take out my target. So for me to just react by going straight into the threat area at this point with no missiles of my own, yeah, it would have been a bad call. I'm glad that I did sort of reset here and let my flight catch back up. Okay, and there goes Springfield. That would be, I would imagine, the F-18s that are directly below us at this point. They're about to take some AGM-88 shots. So they're still very, very well covered with our flight back here in back of them, and then the forward flight rotating back out. So I couldn't have, even if I had planned this, I'm not going to claim that I planned this or anything, but I think from here on out, when we go in hot into the area, the other forward flight is generally speaking going cold, so it works out for timing when it comes to coordinating with forward. And you can see the AGM-86 is impacting SA-15s, and I believe SA-11, that was the expected location for the SA-11 site, so the air defenses are quickly falling prey to our combined efforts here. Okay, so coming around to the left, I'm still looking for that bandit that AWACS called out. Yeah, there we go, and I couldn't find him at that point, and I requested a picture from AWACS. Okay, so I get the picture call, and I'm still saying to myself, well, if it's at Bulls 204, that's on the other side of the air defenses, and that's why I don't turn to engage. That's still a dangerous, dangerous place for me to go. I'm conscious of it, but unless it gets a little bit closer so that I can get in there in close proximity to the SA-10 and the SA-11 that, as far as I know, is still up. I don't think I've heard the radio call for the SA-11 being down yet. I'm still very hesitant to turn and engage in light of the results from last mission. Although I think at this point, yeah, I am going to turn around and try to at least have a look with the radar. Yeah, especially after getting this call that they're only 35 miles away from me. Okay, so at this point I can see one of the Dodge flights going in against the, that'll be the northern airfield. So assuming that flight takes out their targets, it's mission success. Okay, and that's exactly what I was going for there. So I find a target, and although I don't have M120s, I'm sending my flight in there. If I had been thinking, I would have, instead of saying engage bandits, I would have just sorted the targets for them. Said, okay, I've got this one locked, go and hit it. But yeah, I think in retrospect, I don't regret that, because by going engage bandits, they're just going to go out there and wipe out anything without me having to micromanage so much. And looks like those F-18s are in self-defense, taking some AIM-7 shots. Semi-active radar-guided missiles. And the Strike Eagles, coming off their target, are taking some A-120 shots. And that's one thing that, even though I am up as air cover, every aircraft, with the exception of the B-52 that's on this mission, and of course all the other support aircraft, can defend themselves up to a certain point. Okay, so there's an M120 shot off of 2. Okay, there's Dodge 3. That's the other, or the second F-15 Strike Eagle flight, bombs away. So we should get a mission success here momentarily, I would imagine. And even though those MiGs are still up, I mean, they have enough missiles coming after them. They're defensive at this point, so unless they happen to just blunder onto the strike package, which, I mean, granted, they almost do, yeah, pinning them down by just having missiles in the air on them is going to ensure the Dodge is able to get on and off the target. Okay, there goes Dodge 2, so yeah, one of those F-15 Strike Eagle flights. Engaging and splashing a bandit, so that was the last of the MiGs that was airborne. At this point, yeah, I'm just hanging out in the back watching things happen. There's absolutely no sense for me at this point to have gone in. If anything, I'm kind of regretting right now not keeping my wingman with me and not just sending 3 and 4 in there just so that I have some cover in case something does come up. So just sort of holding myself in reserve right now, since I am, after all, just down to aim 9s. Can't really do anything effectively against the expected threat of MiG-29 and Sukhoi-27. I would be at an extreme disadvantage if I went in and tried to engage in this state. And at this point, the last of the Dodge flights bombs their target, and we get the mission success call. And I'm seeing nothing on radar, nothing on RWR that would indicate there's a new threat. I believe I do get a new AWACS picture that is picture clear. So I really just pull back. Me and Ford 4 set up on a rotating combat air patrol right here in more or less the same area. And I start to get a little bit low on fuel. I hit Joker fuel at about this time. I send actually 3 and 4. The way that I'm playing it, at least, is that I sent them to the tanker. In reality, they were just ran out of fuel and crashed. 2, however, did come in here with me, and I, on the return, fly a little bit of formation with them and just fly the standard approach back into Nellis. So overall, yeah, I'm very happy with the outcome. I think I was a little bit behind the curve at a couple of points when it came to assessing the situation and being aware of where the threat was and the status of the other flights in the package. I lost track of Ford 4 after the first engagement, but I sure can't complain about this, especially with this being an Oculus Rift mission. This is the best I've ever had a mission go while flying with the Oculus Rift and just looking around and using the aircraft in that way. So, I mean, just a little bit more resolution, and I think this is eventually, very, very soon, going to not totally replace my monitor. There are a lot of things that you just can't do and probably won't be able to do in the Oculus Rift for a little while, but once you know the aircraft, I think this is going to be the way to go. It's a lot of fun. So that's it for Mission 4. I'm going to let the recovery play on out and come back in Mission 5, maybe in this format, maybe back in the normal full mission format. I'm not sure yet, but in either case, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.